Simon Hicks.
They'll loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that body.
I think I mentioned, a bludgeoning or something. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first edition of Fyffe Focus, the podcast. And it's great to be with you. We're so glad you've joined us. And I want to say this right off the top of the bat here. Bear with us. We're figuring this thing out. None of us have ever hosted a podcast on our own before. So we're figuring things out sound-wise, camera-wise, all kind of things. We're figuring it all out. For the first episode of Fyffe Focus, we're bringing it to you, the podcast style, live from our very own, wherever you may be. I'm out of Florida. I'm in my office at home. To my top up here, this side, say I got to figure out the fingers. This is Greg Mears up here. Greg, say hello to the fine folks.
Hello, fine folks.
And on the other side, we'll get this one figured out. This is Drew Sims. Drew, say hello.
How's it going?
Drew and Greg both serve as our sideline reporter and color analyst on the Red Devil Radio Show. If you are new to what we do, we cover Fyffe football during the fall each and every Friday night. But the reason we're doing this, why a lot of folks might have asked, one reason is because this guy up here, right here in particular, has been bugging me for about 3 years to get involved into something like this. And then when you add in that guy there, and of course, JJ, who's not with us tonight, but for the last few years, they have been asking me to maybe consider this, jump in on this. It just hadn't felt like the right time. Lots of things are coming up. But this year seemed like more than ever. We ended up with a lot more to talk about, a lot more to discuss. So we're going to deep dive over the next several weeks into what Fyffe, not only Fyffe football, but we're going to expand. The other reason we're doing this, Fyffe Focus is going to expand over the next several months leading into football season. It's not just going to focus on football anymore, because if it's going to be Fyffe Focus, Greg, I really feel like we have to be focusing on Fyffe itself. Otherwise, we might as well just call it Fyffe Football Focus.
True.
So we're with that. That's kind of what you can expect a little bit over the next several weeks with this podcast. We're going to be talking, of course, about football, and that'll be a lot of the gearing towards this. But we're also going to pay homage to a lot of other things going on within the school, things that are happening within the school. We're going to tell you about those things. We'll also have a segment each show. We delicately titled, Drew, 10 Minutes of Crap. You want to tell the folks where that title came from?
Well, so most Mondays during football season, we meet to record or watch some film and record some pregame. I'm pretty sure Adam almost every week ends up with at least 10 minutes of us just rambling, especially when all four of us are there. So looking forward to letting you people hear that. Trust me.
Yeah, we promise. We pledge. What is it, Drew? You're a scout. What is it? Scouts honor? Is that Scouts?
Yeah,
Scouts honor. We're going to keep it PG-13. Greg has promised that he's going to lay off some of the expletives that he likes to give out. Old one-liner up there. He's not even grinning. I can't get him to grin.
I'll do my best. I got kicked out of the Scouts, so
Well,
I can't tell you why, because it's PG-13, but it's a great joke.
With that being said, let's jump right into Fyffe Focus, the podcast, brought to you by nobody. If you want to be the sponsor of the podcast, we understand you want to give it a couple of episodes to figure out exactly what we're doing, see if it's worth it. We're going to hang in there and do this, but we would love to talk with you. Get with me, Adam at fun927.com. Again, that's Adam at fun927.com. You can email me. Let's talk. Let's get you sponsored. We will read your advertisement live right here on this very podcast. Myself, Greg, Drew, JJ, whomever, Jonathan Bartlett may join us a little bit later on as well. One of us each week will read, and we will gush over you as our lead sponsor. So get with me, Adam at fun927.com. With that, let's get right into the topics for tonight. First of all, I want to start this one off a little different other than the football aspect. I want to start off by paying homage to the Fyffe basketball teams who just had their seasons unfortunately wrapped up over the weekend on Friday and Saturday. Friday night, Coach Adam Lawrence and the Fyffe Lady Devils, they ended their season at 16-14, 4-2 overall. They fell to Lynette 48-40 last Friday night. I'm told I did not make the trek down. In all honesty, I could not. Had a lot going on. But I'm told they made a game of it. It was a tough matchup going into the fourth period, and Lynette was just able to pull away. A couple of quick highlights for them. They had 2 3-game win streaks in the middle of the season, with 2 of those wins coming in area play, which boasted them to that 4-2 area record. And there's a lot to improve off of for Coach Adam Lawrence and his girls going into what will be year 2 for Coach Lawrence. For Coach Dustin Bryant and the varsity boys, the Fyffe Red Devil boys, they went 17-14, 5-1 in area play. They fell to Lafayette, or we got to say it right, as we learned in football a few years ago. It's Lafayette, not Lafayette. It's Lafayette, like Lafet. It's Lafayette. That's how they pronounce it down there. But they fell to the Red Devils 67-31 Saturday night. The highlights for the season, it was a mid to late season kind of run here where the Red Devils won 11 of 13 games and had multiple top 10 wins in there, including against Collinsville, whom, don't quote me, guys, I want to say they were like number 3 or 4 in the state at the time. And Fyffe went to Collinsville, and for 3 quarters, it was a game, and then Fyffe pulled away in the 4th. So they had a lot of good wins. They got hosed, though. I'm going to be honest. And I know JJ would love to tackle this. Greg, you were there for the area tournament, so I'll let you speak on this. They got hosed from being able to host the area tournament by a technicality in the AHSAA rules, because Collinsville had to forfeit their wins due to an ineligible player. That forced the wins to go to everybody that Collinsville had beaten in area play, and that caused Gaston and Fyffe to have a tie. Gaston got to host, unfortunately, because of the coin toss tiebreaker rule. I don't much care for that. We're going to talk about this in length at another time when JJ gets on here, because he's the basketball guy of the crew more than any of us. But still, you were there for that area tournament. What did you see from the boys?
Well, from the first game to the second game, they really played different. I saw them play like 4 times this year. And the first game on Monday night, man, they looked fabulous, just a whole different team. When they came back on Wednesday, they kind of reverted back to their old ways. But I'm sure the crowd, honestly, that home court would have helped them out a lot, because there was a good, it was at Gadsden, and a very good crowd, very loud, very vocal, cheering their boys on. And then Fyffe didn't travel well, not the students. There were some parents there and all of us, but didn't really do a good job traveling, I'll have to say. So there wasn't a lot of presence. When Gadsden would get on a roll, there wasn't a lot of hooping and hollering on the other side of the court.
I think, though, Drew, that's what happens when you play that game on a Wednesday evening, even at 5:30. I don't care how early you try to make it before church, per se. I myself didn't get to make it because of my church obligations, and my brother is a senior on the basketball team. But I think something like that's got to get figured out. I honestly don't think – it used to be a thing here in the South, Drew, where you don't have practice, you don't play games of any sort on Wednesday.
I guess I don't understand why – so all the sub-regional games were Saturday for the boys. So I don't understand why they couldn't have played that game on a Thursday. You still got a day's rest in there. I get it. Maybe you want to let the guys rest for 2 days, but play it on Thursday.
Not even the day, but like you say, the time. That's a 5:30 game, an hour away. Half the people aren't off work.
Yeah,
to even get out there in the first place, no matter which way it went. Same thing. Gaston was playing up here at 5, but
that's what you want the home court for.
The Wednesday, just the start time it's one game. Why you're starting it at 5:30, I have no idea.
Right, and that's the home court advantage. It came down to a coin flip. Adam brought up the circumstances. It came down to a coin flip, but
again, a big congratulations though to both the basketball squads. I know it didn't end the way you wanted it to, but there's a lot to look forward to. And speaking of things to look forward to, Fyffe football this past season, I think, provided one of the more entertaining seasons that Fyffe has had in some time. And Drew, you played for Coach Benefield. Greg, you for Coach Haushalter. I think at some point folks kind of get used to Fyffe doing what Fyffe does, and they're just – Fyffe's just going to run over these people. They're going to run over everybody. Look at the score. It's the same as it always is. I really felt like, Drew, that this was one of the more entertaining years that I've called Fyffe football in my 12 years on this crew.
Well, Fyffe did have some seniors. So it's not – I'm not saying that they didn't have any, but there was not as many as you would normally have. Like the year before, there was 12 seniors. So, but – that's hard to replace 12 seniors. And if you don't have a lot of seniors coming up, it's even more difficult. So a lot of young guys got to play. We saw that, the lone loss came to Geraldine. first game of the year. So, kind of got their feet under them. A lot of competition, a lot of competitive games later in the season. Pisgah twice. Locust Fork was a good game. And really, the state championship was a good game. It was kind of turned into a shootout there pretty quick. But yeah. I mean, as far as what you want for your young guys coming up, I think that's the best you could have gotten as far as the competition level you had to play.
So Fyffe goes 14-1 as the overall season record. By the way, the first time that Fyffe has ever won the state championship and not gone undefeated on the season, but a 7-0 region record. It's their 7th state championship in the last 10 seasons. It's the second time they've ever gone back to back. And the previous time they went back to back, they also won a third title after that as well. And so it went back to back to back. 6 shutouts on the season, including North Sand Mountain, Whitesburg Christian, Section, Sandrock, Eider, and in the first round versus the West End Patriots. Oh, and by the way, they set a team record for margin of victory in that section game, beating Section 63-0. But there's one game, and Drew brought it up, I want to go back to, Greg, for a moment. That Geraldine game, and I actually want both of you to comment on this, but Greg, I'll start with you. It was into the fourth quarter before Fyffe got their lone touchdown on the board, and we were listen, part of the podcast parameters is let's be honest. That's what this is about. We're going to be honest. We were nervous about what this team might be after what we saw in that Geraldine game. Take me through, Greg, what you felt. What do you remember from that Geraldine game, and what do you remember taking away from it?
Well, I remember it was hot in that press box. Does that count?
That
no,
counts.
I mean, I think all of us, like you said, a lot of the fans, just like you're saying, expect it to roll every year. Well, you can't lose 12 seniors on a 2A school, and expect something to change. Plus, you got to remember that Geraldine was a semifinal 3A team this year, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yep.
So you're going up against a very quality opponent with a new team almost, with a new offensive line. I think we brought back one offensive line, so it takes a while. And the first half was full of atypical Fyffe mistakes, something you don't normally see. But again, a young group, trying to figure each other out, trying to know who you trust, who you don't trust. Because it's a brotherhood out there. It's who you can depend on. I know where I'm supposed to be. If I know where Drew's supposed to be and he's there, you play a whole different kind of game. So, I mean, it's about what we expected, or what I expected at least. A really hard-fought game, probably a little bit closer than even, and the score wasn't bad, but, even a little bit closer. I think you played that game over again, and it may be, if you play it 10 times, it may be Geraldine wins 5, and Fyffe wins 5. So, I mean, that's how evenly matched they were. So, again, I think it's about what I expected for the first game of the year.
True.
I mean, Geraldine's always going to give you their best shot. Well, really, for Fyffe, anybody's going to try to give you their best shot. But Geraldine, I think, had 16 seniors, I think is what we put out there. So there was a lot of these guys that had beaten Fyffe before. So, and there's something to be said about, a lot of teams get off the bus and they're beat immediately. Yeah. Just the attitude they have coming in the game, we're playing Fyffe. So Geraldine, they didn't get off the bus thinking that we beat these guys before. We've been here before, let's do it again. So, again, and you commented on it, I think, when we were looking at it, in the third round. I mean, just football around Sand Mountain in general is really picking up in the last, I would say, 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 3 semifinal teams that were from DeKalb and Jackson County. And you had a Marshall County as well with Guntersville. Mm-hmm. And then in the third round, Sylvania was still there. So, a lot of good football being played in Northeast Alabama. I know everybody says that there's always been good football around here. But, for a long time, I would say from Plainview in the 90s until Fyffe in 2014, there wasn't anybody hardly from Northeast Alabama, except for Fyffe in 2007, that really even made it to the state game.
Right. Well, even as good as those teams were, for a football championship in DeKalb County before Fyffe won it in 14, you got to go back to 1986 to the Crossville Lions, who didn't even field a football team this past season and will not be fielding another one this year or this upcoming season. may not field one for another couple of 3 seasons. So, a lot of things have picked up around here. That's for certain. A lot of folks are trying to copy the model of what Fyffe is doing. One thing I wanted to hit on before we move on is that Geraldine lost 17-6 and the way that it went. There were a lot. Let's just be honest. Coach Benefield would be bluntly honest with us if he were here. There were a lot of massive blunders in that ball game, and I won't point to one or two or anything like that. Everybody knows what happened, and it doesn't matter anymore to that point. But I want to talk about what those led to, because Drew, in 2015, you were on a team that had an early season loss. You lost the first region game of the year to Cleveland, 21-14, I think was the final in that one. I didn't put that in my notes, but you guys were going through your own adversity and having to switch quarterbacks. If I remember right, Will Mashburn had torn his ACL late in the Geraldine game the week before. And so you go to Seth Benefield, the coach's son, who was a left-handed. You're flipping the offense, and everybody's sort of moving around trying to figure out what works best. You lose to Cleveland. You still make the state championship that year. Now, albeit we fell to Elba in a rematch, but nonetheless, what does a loss like that early season do? Because you've been there and have still been able to traverse the season somehow, some way to make the big dance. What does a loss like that do, and what did it do for this 2023 bunch?
Well, it's something that, it's humbling, because we had coming off 2014, or it was 15-0. Yeah, there was some close games, but really, to be honest, nobody ever. There was a couple games that seemed close, but nobody was ever really close, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, coming into 2015, we felt like, maybe we knew what we were doing. We had it all figured out. We were just kind of, maybe I would say, a little bit going through the motions to some degree. But then that loss kind of brings you back down to earth, and you're like, hey, we're not as good as we think we are. Got to go back to the drawing board, and that we had more injuries that year than this 23 team did.
Yeah.
I think we may have returned more starters, but still, losing the quarterback, and then Brady Carson, our starting middle linebacker, the one that called the defense, probably got hurt during the Cleveland game in the first quarter, so that hurt too.
Forgot about that.
So, injuries played a part in that. So, and then we kind of at that point, we had to re-identify ourselves as a team, if that makes sense. Because we had thought this was what we were going to be, and then a couple injuries later, we're totally different. So, and then I'll say this about the 23 team. If you were going to beat Fyffe, this was the year to do it. I'm not saying they're not going to lose next year or anything like that, but young team coming off a state championship year. I know they're coming off a state championship into this 24 season.
Yeah.
But now you've got guys that play a year older than they are.
Right.
So
right.
It's going to be hard to beat Fyffe, even in 3A.
Yes, this team overcame a lot of adversity at the end of the season. Logan Anderson gets recognized as a finalist for 2A Back of the Year. Tucker Wilkes is awarded the 2A Lineman of the Year. So obviously a lot of credit was given where credit was due. But I think one thing that's not being mentioned, I've said it before, I think I've said it to you guys, and I want you to elaborate on it and tell me what you think. Was this one of Coach Benefield's best coaching jobs ever, from start to finish, from the Geraldine game, even the Piedmont Jamboree before, which you and I were sitting together at, from that point to the state championship, there was a major difference in this ball club. Was this one of Coach Benefield's better coaching seasons, you think?
Well, I would think so, because again, and not to take anything away, but like you said, you lost 12 seniors on a small 2A school. So, getting to play first off Piedmont in that Jamboree, and then playing a team like Geraldine, he got to see where the weaknesses were. And there were weaknesses out there, but he was able to, you get the best between your first game and second game, supposedly. And it was tremendously different after that first game. And that goes back to coaching, whether it's just motivating the boys, putting the kids in the right spot. And like we always used to say, you can have the kids on the bus, everybody on the same bus, but you got to get them in the right seat too. Mm-hmm. And that's what he did a fabulous job of, getting everybody, finding where they were weak, where they were strong, and doing what was best, to make that offense and defense roll.
What about, and I'm going to stick with you, Greg, what about Logan first of all, and I'm going to hit on both the finalists for 2A Back of the Year and the award-winning 2A Lineman of the Year in Tucker. I want to hit on both of those guys for a second. What about Logan, though? First of all, in that Piedmont game, it was almost like there was really nothing to lose because you can't win the game, you can't lose the game. So it looked maybe like at times he felt like some of the pressure was off. But then all of a sudden, the season gets there. You can win a game, you can lose this game. And he's coming off this horrific injury that, just 10 years ago, he probably we wouldn't even be talking about him having played the 2023 season if this was 10 years ago. Take me through your thought process and what you saw from Logan as he matured throughout the season. I know Coach had expressed to me at one point in the first matchup with Pisgah, he was kind of worried about where the mindset was of the team as a whole, but Logan in particular, because that was that game against that very team that he got hurt in the year before.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody, you've got to gain your confidence back. I've luckily never had that kind of injury that was that hard to come back from, and so at the first of the year, he's got to be a little tentative, whether it's, in the front of his mind, in the back of his mind. You've got to be worried, I think, a little bit about if I make this cut, what's going to happen. And as he got more, comfortable with the injury, realized that he was the same thing. He actually came back and, I know he had to do a lot of rehab. So he actually came back and looked a little bit stronger than he did the year before. Looked a little bit better once he got his wheels under him. Yeah. But he just does a fabulous job. I mean, can you imagine? And again, this is what I think makes Coach Benefield great, is that he doesn't leave these kids in for 3 quarters or 4 quarters. He gets the younger guys in. But, I mean, can you imagine if Logan played for some of these other coaches and was in there for 4 quarters?
Right.
What his numbers would be? There'd be he was runner-up for back of the year. Let me tell you that.
Well, let me ask you, Drew, sticking with Logan for a second, we'll get to Tucker in a moment. And I'm hoping at some point we'll get both of these guys on the podcast, whether together in separate episodes or whatever. I'd love to get them on for 5-10 minutes and talk with them and chat with them about this season and what's coming up, because both of these guys are returning. But that Pisgah game, that first matchup, I think all 3 of us, when we hit a commercial break, Drew, we were all kind of like, maybe it was the first break, second break, or whatever. We all kind of let a sigh of relief go, there's Logan. There he is. That's the Logan we expected to see.
Yeah, that's a big mental hurdle. Like Greg said, that I never had an injury like that either, so I can't, speak from experience. But I imagine that it's that's awful hard. Not even a full year to come back and play at a level, that's even worth mentioning. As back of the year. Listen, how many we'd have to look it up. How many schools are in 2A and how many of them have running backs? That right. They only pick, how many they pick finalists do they pick? 4 or 5?
It's like 3.
Right. So to even be invited is a that's a big deal in itself to me. No, he didn't win. Preston Lancaster was the one that won. Maybe he did play longer than he needed to as a quarterback. Maybe he did have some garbage time numbers. I don't know.
I do know Preston was the leading passer in the entire state at one point. Right. I do know that. Right. And that speaks volumes for a little 2A school. Right. And that's Tuscaloosa Academy.
That's one of the things that makes Coach Benefield frustrated about them going and not winning is that, like, he doesn't play them for 4 quarters just to get the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, if you ask anybody going into this 24 season who the best back in 3A is, Logan is at least in the top 3.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
And then, Adam, I'll tell you, when I knew Logan was back and when I figured he was back full strength, if y'all remember that section game, I don't know how long the run was, but he was wide, 5 yards from going in the end zone, nobody near him, and he took a 90-degree turn to go run over that poor kid from section. That's when you figure he's pretty comfortable and pretty back, because that's exactly what he did.
That was one of the few highlights of that game that we can recall and remember, only because there wasn't much to talk about that game. And by, I guess, midway through the second quarter, we were already getting a little la loopsy, if you will, just trying to come up with something to fill the airtime because we still had another half and a quarter to go or so. Speaking of another young man that deserves some look to go play at the next level, Tucker Wilkes recently awarded the 2A Lineman of the Year, Greg. I'll share a quick story, and then I want, Greg, you to get into this. Coach Benefield had told me I don't remember what game it was. And for those who don't know, I take Thursday mornings. I have a standing about 9:15 with Coach Benefield on Thursdays, and I go and chat with him. Sometimes it's 15 minutes. We get in, we get out, boom, we're done. Sometimes I'm there for like 2.5 hours, and I'm texting y'all afterwards, and I'm trying to tell you everything that happened in a group text, because some of it's funny, some of it's good stuff. Sometimes Coach gets deep and personal with me. He had told me the story about Tucker in the playoffs the year before, Greg, in the first round, I think against Red Bay, potentially breaking his collarbone, and they didn't find that out until like 8-9 months down the road or something to that effect. And they found out when they'd sent him to the orthopedic specialist or whatever to get him checked out after he was complaining of some pain in his shoulder. And turns out he had most likely played through a broke collarbone throughout the majority of the playoffs in the 2022 season, and then started this season with a little bit of aggravation from it and just kept on. And Coach told me, he said, after I found all that out and talked with Tucker, he said, I got on the horn with some of those beat writers down there in Birmingham from the ASAA, the Alabama Sports Writers Association, and talked with him and told them that if they don't give him the award, not just select him as a finalist, but give him the award, then it's rigged and they owe everyone an apology. And that's the simple way of putting it. That's the nice way of putting what he said. But your take on Tucker and obviously getting a well-deserved Lineman of the Year award that he spent maybe 15 seconds in giving a thank you speech. But nevertheless, Tucker meant a few words. He does all his he lets his play do his talking for him, don't he?
He does that indeed. I mean, he's a beast on both sides of the ball, and he definitely deserved it. And then to sit back and imagine that he played. I mean, I cannot imagine anybody playing 5 games with a broken collarbone. I mean, what kind of grit and determination, and obviously pain tolerance too, that young man must have. And it just shows you again with how his motor runs. You know, and that's a lot to do with Fyffe, man. They're passionate, and for you to play 5 games like that, you must really want it bad.
Yeah. Drew, this is a kid we're talking about here that has started since the 8th grade. Not many kids come through Fyffe and can say that they have started every game since their 8th grade season, their first year on varsity. Coach rarely lets a 7th grader get on the varsity squad. Usually it's after the JV season is over and he just lets them dress out. They don't even see the field. Tucker has been there and was basically counted on as a leader, I think, starting midway through his freshman year. Ryder Gibson's another one that comes to mind in that same vein, but Tucker been there and is the staple of that offensive and defensive front.
Yeah, and he didn't just start, on a team with a bunch of young guys around him. Like, he started with a bunch of 10th graders around him. So he was an 8th grader starting, with 10th graders and juniors and seniors up there too, playing on that line. That's it's pretty impressive. I could not have played as an 8th grader. I did dress as an 8th grader, but I did not play at all. So, that's just a testament to how much of a hard worker he is. I think if he had about 2 more inches, maybe, and he may have grown that over the summer. I don't know. Haven't seen him in a while, but man, I really think that he could play really any level of football he wanted, just because of that work ethic and how tough and gritty he is, and a good kid too.
So in preparation for the podcast, I sent you guys sort of the rundown sheet of how we're going to do this. I did not include one thing because I hope we would get here and y'all talked about the work that he's put in. Both of you have mentioned that. So I wanted to throw a zinger your way. I have been told, I can't verify this happening because I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I have been told that there have been times in the weight room that they have had to stop Tucker, that he is absolutely a beast on the weights in that weight room, that there'll be times that he's challenging himself, pushing himself, however you want to look at it. And they're like, dude, you're gonna overdo it. You got to stop. Even Coach Benefield has told me that. So I'm putting a lot of stock into that being true, obviously, but I've heard it from some of the other players. So it makes me wonder. I don't know what Tucker, what his max is on like bench. So maybe we can ask him if we ever get him on the podcast. Drew, what did you max out at? Do you remember?
I think the most I ever did was in bench. I think it was 265, which is probably not even close to what I mean. He's doing so. That
Greg,
was not even close to the strongest in the weight room at all.
Greg, do you remember?
Well, we didn't have a weight room. We had a Paramount machine. So what we maxed out on is nothing compared to what y'all guys did free weights. So I think we didn't have a squat rack or anything like that. So I probably maxed out at probably 230, 240 on bench press. And again, that's on a freaking Paramount machine. So that's probably equal to about 120. Not very much.
Leave it to Greg to make me and Drew show our age, because maybe Drew knows what you're talking. Drew, there you go. Drew maybe knows what you're talking about. What did you call it? A Paramount machine?
Actually, the Paramount is the brand name, and it was like a circuit. So you had a bench press, you had a pull down, you had a leg press, and a sit up board, and I think that was it. That was our weights. It's just one machine, probably 5 feet by 5 feet, and every machine was connected to the weights in the middle, basically.
And you can do a variety of workouts on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well,
exactly. And
those kinds of things are still around.
Curl. So you had bicep curl, bench press, shoulder press, shoulder pull down, and leg press. That was it.
What was the best you ever did? Do you remember?
Like I said, probably on leg press, I really don't know, probably 500. But again, that's so different because you're not using anything but your main muscle. There's no stabilizing muscles. You don't have to worry about it, going left or right. And then I think I got probably 230, 235 on bench, which actually almost got me in a fight with a turd because I was wearing my shirt and he didn't think I could do it.
Okay, we got to know by turd what.
Well, a Plainview player.
That's
a Plainview player that didn't think I earned my shirt from Fyffe.
Okay. Well, I knew what you meant. Some folks may not understand that reference anymore because the new age kids don't use it. I understand it because of where I did graduate from. Everybody knows, so I did understand it. Drew understands it. He's been around that. You're listening to Fyffe Focus, the podcast, the very first episode presented by nobody. If you'd like to become the title sponsor of the podcast, get with us, Adam at fun927.com. Now we move on to something that's a little bit more world encompassing, if you will, and it's going to be, I think, end up being one of Greg and JJ when he joins us. I think one of their favorite, probably the favorite segment of each and every show, the one that we delicately call the 10 minutes of crap. We need to come up with some kind of jingle. I need to put something together at the station or something. 10 minutes of crap. So basically what this is we bring up anything. We talk about anything for a few moments, anything that kind of pops into our head, because as Drew mentioned earlier at the top of the podcast, that's kind of what spawned this whole thing. Was we were just kind of jawing and just talking, and all of a sudden we got the giggles, and one thing led to another. And I still have the initial 10 minutes of crap on my phone and listen to it from time to time when I need to laugh on the car ride to work. I got an hour, guys, 10 minutes. I got to have something to fill in the time. So the thing I want to talk about, and you guys will get your opportunities to pick each and every week, and maybe we change it up too. But the Super Bowl obviously was over the weekend. And I got to watch the second half over at your house, Drew. The Chiefs win their third Super Bowl in 5 seasons, defeating San Francisco 25-22 in overtime. And by the way, they used every stinking bit of that overtime to go win it, minus 3 seconds. I think there were still 3 seconds left on the clock when it was said and done. McCole Hardman, in case you missed it, he caught the game winner from Patrick Mahomes. McCole did not even look like for a moment that he realized what just happened. He looked like we scored a touchdown. I got to get off the field and let him kick the field goal or the extra point. What was your take on it? I do have a question I'll ask in a little bit, but I wanted to get your guys' take. Greg, I'll start with you. What was your take on the Super Bowl? Did you even get to watch it? Because I know you're a man that's busy at a certain restaurant. Did you get to watch it?
Yeah, we did get to watch it because usually once that kicks off, it kind of slows down. So I got to watch it pretty much. Probably what you're going to ask later on, but it's just hard to believe that the game went exactly how the NFL would want the game to go. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist guy, but you got to start wondering too, because right after they missed that extra point where I was at, I pretty much laid out how I thought the rest of the game was going to go. And lo and behold, it went exactly that way. The only thing I missed was I thought it would be Kelsey catching the touchdown pass in overtime. You know, that would be like the perfect script.
I think I said that to Adam. I think I said, as long as Kelsey doesn't catch it to win.
And that's the one part of it I missed. I want to know who in the booth. First off, I'm gonna get off of the actual game here real quick and get into the crap part, and then y'all can go back to the game if you want. First off, who saw the booth like the first or second time they flashed Taylor Swift up there and saw the little redhead girl there and thought they were doing a remake of Annie? I mean, did y'all get to see it? I thought, my God, they're starring Taylor Swift and Annie, and that's little orphan Annie standing right there behind her.
Well, she was wearing an upside down cross on her as a necklace, and then she was making a bunch of signs, and you're like, what is going on?
One of the Ice Girl or the
Spice
Ice Spice or whatever. And then
that makes no sense.
It took me a minute to figure out who that even was, by the way.
Yeah, I had no idea. And then if you last night during the game, if you played one of the Taylor Swift drinking games, I hope your hangover's better right now. Because boy, that second half you were drinking a lot, buddy.
And what got me, they would show her, and it had nothing to do with Travis Kelce.
No.
When Mahomes took that QB keeper for like 20 yards, I think it's 22 yards, they showed her like that has nothing to do with Travis Kelce. Why are you showing me her?
There's some great memes out there today.
Yeah. I think you shared some with us on our text group.
One of them was the one about they wanted to show Taylor Swift when Kansas City did something wrong, you know, when they had that fumble or something or the interception. Hey, let's look at her now.
They just wanted to get her type of reaction, or Home Alone. Oh my goodness, you know. Okay, not the question I was going to ask, but one that popped into my head. Are you guys as tired? Listen, I'm going to get so much heat for this. I know, frankly, I really don't
you dare say anything wrong.
Are you guys tired of Taylor Swift as much as I am?
It was listen, she's a talented young lady. There's no question about that. A great entertainer. But yes, I get tired of that. And then when you as an older guy and an election coming up, you start talking politics. It's like, ooh, man, I don't want to talk about that in Taylor Swift. But yeah, I mean, I think at our age you do. I want to see the game after you see her once or twice. One thing she did do.
That's the thing is people watch the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl. Like,
and the commercials.
I get it. Well, the commercials, point of debate. I think the commercials were awful anyway. People watch the Super Bowl, or most, I would say most, and the ones that watched it for Taylor would have lived with one or two shots of Taylor the whole game. Seemed like, I know it wasn't, but it seemed like it was like every other play we were getting a shot of the Kelsey booth.
There was a lot in the second half. I mean, the first half wasn't that bad, but the second half, there probably was 10. I think because I was doing a kind of a podcast out of Birmingham, and I think the final number was 14 shots. That's crazy.
Like one or two, one at the beginning of the game, maybe one in the middle of the game when they got up to win, got up and we're going to win. But I don't know. I get the other one. Why. I get why. And hey, I'm not gonna bash Taylor Swift at all. I think she's smart. Dating Travis Kelce.
Money and publicity.
Well, money and publicity, and hey, more people watching football. You're gonna get more people that want to play football, and then you're gonna have more people that have more head injuries that lead to more Taylor Swift fans.
All right, moving on to another quick little tidbit in the 10 minutes of crap here, Super Bowl related. All right, so we either thumbs up or we kind of I can't even get my whole hands on camera, or we thumbs down. Halftime show. Where you at? Thumbs up, thumbs down, mid-range.
I go
mid.
And I'm the wrong age demographic. I'm even too old for somebody that was popular 20 years ago.
I was sitting there at Drew's house watching this, and I'm like, Usher, man, this is This was sixth grade for me. This was sixth, seventh, eighth grade for me. I remember these songs, man. We were on when I was in band, and we were, coming back from a band competition. These songs were bouncing off of people's Zune phones. Y'all remember Zune phones? Y'all remember those? They didn't last very long, but we had these songs, so I was all excited for it, and then I'm like, this is sort of a letdown. I think I think on Facebook, I think I said I'd give it like a C minus. I think is what I said. And it's a C minus mainly just because the nostalgia factor, in my opinion, saved it. If it wasn't for that, for me personally, it'd probably been a solid F. I mean, just honestly, I was not impressed with it. All right, the question I did want to ask quickly here, and I know for some reason, I've heard lately from a lot of the young kids that they're more into the NFL than they are the college game. I don't get it, but whatever. I say that as I have an old Calvin Ridley jersey hanging up behind me, thanks to Drew and the family from my birthday a few years ago. And it is signed, by the way. But that all that being said, for nothing, is the NFL rigged, especially in the last 5 years?
Boy, like I said, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but it's getting hard to.
I mean, look, if you ask me, the NFL is basically the WWE. Maybe not to that extent to where it's completely fake, but like it's all at least fixed. Now, can teams, get out of a fix sometimes? Yeah, I think so. I think maybe the Burrow year in Cincinnati when they went and played the Rams may have been out of the fix. I'm not for sure, but it was always the Rams that was going to win, right? But even so. It didn't matter who made it. It was going to be the Rams, but it's all for entertainment. To be honest, I don't even know why I watch it or even care at all.
Right.
Because it's all fake. It's all fixed. And somebody that's a Titans fan, nobody's picking the Titans. Sorry.
I'm a Falcons fan, so I get it.
Again, 28-3. You mean to tell me those dudes got down 28-3 and just gave it up like that on a normal? No.
Greg, if Tom Brady wasn't the quarterback, would the Patriots have come back in that game? 28-3.
Oh, heck no, absolutely not.
Was it because of Tom Brady they came back, or was it because the NFL deemed it so?
I kind of lean to. I kind of defer to Mr. Drew there. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that you can give up that kind of a score without there being something going on with it. And like I said, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. I would have thought 5 years ago I would have argued with you. But the last 5 years, it's been like, okay.
Flip a
coin at the first of the year, and I can tell you who's going to be in the Super Bowl and who's going to win. It's kind of crazy.
At the very least, 100%. Do flags get thrown? Do things happen to make the games look like they're closer than they are? Yes. 100%. I don't think you can dispute that. I don't think anybody can dispute that. If one team starts getting an edge, like last night, one team started getting an edge, they threw freaking 5 penalties on San Francisco in the second quarter to keep it close.
Right.
For the rest of the game. Am I saying those guys are not good athletes? No. They're obviously the best football athletes in the world.
Yep.
But I'm not going to say it's scripted because I don't think – well, maybe they do. I don't know. I don't think the NFL thinks we're that dumb, maybe, yet. But it's definitely fixed.
We invite you, the listener, the watcher, if you're listening to us and you're driving, please, for the love of God, put the phone down and just listen. Don't actually watch them. We're just sitting in our living rooms. Thank God we're not in the bathroom on the porcelain throne doing this. We invite you to comment below. Let us know what you think. Agree with us, disagree with us, think we're stupid, think we're the most brilliant guys on the earth, which I know most of you lean towards the latter. We are the most brilliant guys on earth, I think. Especially Greg up here, somewhere up here. I got to get my camera all fixed up. Anyway, he's right here. He's the most brilliant guy on the face of the earth. He knows what he's talking about. You ought to be in some of the text threads. We call him one-liner for a reason. But let us know what you think in the comments below. All right, final segment of this, and it's mainly just sort of a calendar rundown, just to kind of give you an idea of some things upcoming. And Fyffe, like we said, basketball season is wrapped up. with that being said, Major League Baseball is not the only ones with pitchers and catchers reporting. Baseball and softball, they're getting into full swing. First pitch for baseball, and I have this verified. I got the schedule. We record this on Monday this week, and so I got the full schedule earlier this week from shout out John Fowler. Thank you for getting me this. First pitch for baseball is coming up Monday the 19th. So a week from this time that we're recording comes up Monday the 19th versus North Jackson. That game will be at North Jackson. The varsity and the junior varsity teams will play in that game, or at North Jackson rather, at 4:30 and 6:30 respectively. Softball, I'm still waiting to get the verified schedule. I'm told that there are a few changes having to be made, so we're going to hopefully get that. It may not be slugged into this by the time we get it for this recording, but as we have found it thus far on a few different websites, softball's first pitch comes up Thursday the 29th against Sylvania. So keep that in mind for baseball and softball. Also, for those who have young kids that they're looking to get into school, you need to pay attention. Go on the Fyffe Facebook page or decabk12.org for this information. Pre-K registration is going on now through March 20th. You can go online to pre-k.alaceed.alabama.gov to register. If you need assistance, it will be made available at Fyffe on February 26th. Open enrollment is available for all Alabama children 4 years of age on or before September 1st, 2024. And finally, kindergarten registration is also underway right now, and you go to decabk12.org for that. Once you've completed the online registration, bring the following documents to Fyffe School on February 26th to complete the registration. You'll need a birth certificate, a parent photo ID, social security card, Alabama shot record, a judge-signed custody paperwork if necessary, and address verification such as a water or power bill. If neither is in the parent's or guardian's name, the power bill or the water bill, that is, a notarized residency affidavit can be used with a water or power bill in the signer's name. So keep those things in mind. If you're a listener and you've got a young one, you're looking to get started in school, we want to try and help. Again, this is Fyffe Focus. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to shed more focus on Fyffe and, of course, have a little bit of fun in the process of it. We get into the 10 minutes of crap, which we just had. And I promise, folks, we're still learning how to do this. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get better. We're going to get better at doing this. None of us. Drew is the only one. Which hand? It's this hand. Yeah. Drew is the only one with any podcast type of experience. Drew, I'll give you a shameless opportunity here to plug your podcast real quick.
Yeah, well, I know most of you that know me outside of this know I don't talk a lot and I keep my opinions to myself. So if you ever wonder what I think about maybe TV show or a movie, we've got a podcast. We're on YouTube. It's called Film Rebels. We talk, a lot of Disney, a lot of Marvel. We get some different stuff on there from time to time too. So movies, all that. So if you ever wonder what I think.
You and I think there's a couple other guys with you too, right?
Yeah.
So
Titus Reed is one, Johnny Grizzard, Ethan Schultz. Good guys.
Good,
we have fun
guys there. I think
that's what it's about.
Every one of them. So, and Greg is not into that, but Greg, you can catch him down at your local Applebee's restaurant in Fort Payne, Alabama, on any given day of the week. It seems like, ain't that right, Greg?
Seems like every day of the week.
All right. So again, this has been Fyffe Focus, the podcast. First episode. We're going to get a lot better at this. We're gonna have some special guests. We're going to line it up. This is also how we're going to be doing. On a final note here, this is how we're going to be doing our Fyffe Focus for the season when we interview players and such. We are going to expand that, not only interview players, but I've already talked with Miss Cochran. Her name's Colby. It's weird for me. She was in school when I was doing the radio things. So I've spoken with her. We're going to talk with the cheerleaders as well. We're going to try and talk with the band director, Mr. Bo Esposito, and maybe get some of his kids on, because we want to expand this and talk Fyffe. We want to make it Fyffe Focus. But part of the reason, the big reason that it's changing, if you haven't heard, my wife and I are expecting our first child in early July. And so as you folks know who've got kids, and both of you guys have your own kid, you know what I'm talking about when it's going to change things. You know what it means to change it. I don't know yet. We're going to find out in a few months. But one of the things that's going to have to change is how we do the Fyffe Focus. So this will be it. We will have this. Maybe this will get us a lot easier too on meeting up with the guys and getting a chat with them. Maybe they won't be as timid. Maybe they'll be a little more loose and talk with us. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. First episode of Fyffe Focus. If you'd like to sponsor it, Adam at fun927.com. Shoot me an email. I'll get you hooked up. Final thoughts, guys, before we sign off for this one.
Man, just enjoyed it. And I really don't, I mean, not a lot of thoughts go through this head most of the time. So I don't have any.
Drew.
Well, I'm sorry if I offend you with a Taylor Swift comment, but come back for more because I'm sure there'll be more.
And with that, guys, we say adios. I'll sign off the same way I always do. Good night, everyone, or good morning, whatever time you're watching this. And as always, go Big Red.